What is the Astral Sea? Well, it is the space between everything. It is the road that goes everywhere. It is where you are when you aren't anywhere else. Traveling through the astral plane can sometimes be necessary. Deities and realm lords can prevent you from entering their planes through portals, and when these shortcuts are not an option, then you're just gonna have to walk, so to speak. The astral plane is sort of like the road that connects all of the different existences, all the different planes together. Traveling through it, though, can be extremely dangerous, not just because of the sudden, wild sonic pirate that might appear, but because therein lies an even more dangerous foe. The Astral Dragon. The astral plane is very much unique. It is a place of thought rather than physicality. Imagine it like floating in the vast emptiness of space, but instead of dark, it is silvery in color, with touches of pink and white strands that permeate the surroundings. Your movement is dependent on your intelligence. The more intelligent you are, the faster you can move in the silvery void. While in here, you do not age, neither do you feel hungry or thirsty. Even magical items behave rather oddly here, some travelers claiming that their items lost their abilities while in the astral plane, while others simply realizing that magical weapons simply don't look or feel magical but still retain their powers. Which is safe to say, most things just feel different while in this realm. Even breathing feels special, some claiming that the air itself feels solid, almost as if you're eating the air into your lungs. This odd feeling, however, felt pleasant and never painful. Now imagine, if you will, a dragon, not just born under these conditions, but molded by them. You see, dragons are creatures of magic. They're not like humans who would simply find a way to coexist with their ambience. Dragons mutate with their ambience. The astral dragon, for example, is pretty much one with the astral plane. First and foremost, astral dragons look very much like a Chinese dragon would look like. It doesn't have any wings, and it possesses a very long snake-like body. It doesn't need wings because it can easily float within the silvery void of the astral plane. It, however, does possess a fascinating organ magically in its head that grants it the ability to fly in the prime material world without the need for wings. This, however, brings me to my next point. Astral dragons have the brilliant ability to plane shift at will into any location in any plane they desire, and they can do this as many times as they want, which makes killing an astral dragon an almost impossible endeavor. There is one caveat to this ability though, and that is that whenever an astral dragon plane shifts anywhere, there is a 1% chance that a terrible sickness will unfold within the body of the dragon. This sickness is called Astral Immitis, and what it does is it eliminates the ability for the dragon to ever again travel back and forth between the planes. As soon as a dragon realizes that it can no longer travel back to the astral plane, it very often goes insane. This insanity makes it so that it starts attacking and destroying everything in its path. Whatever gets close to the dragon ends up simply devoured in its rage. Spellcasting becomes impossible while in this stage, however the physical damage to the dragon does become multiplied, very similar to a barbarian rage. During this rage, the dragon will fight unendingly for 2 to 5 days without rest until it simply collapses from exhaustion and dies. There is no known cure to this disease, however, it is known that a wish spell can fix this problem. Another solution is for someone to help the dragon go back into the astral plane, either via a portal or via a form of spell. The dragon would then regain its sanity slowly while in the astral plane. However, in this case, the disease not being cured would still prevent the dragon from ever leaving it again. Now, this being the case, you might be wondering, well, why on earth would any astral dragon ever leave the astral plane when something this terrible can happen? Well, the answer lies at the beginning of this video. Remember when I said that you cannot age within the astral plane? Yep, that also applies to the dragon. A baby dragon after hatching needs to go into another plane in order to age and become older and grow. Otherwise, it will stay as a baby forever. Astral dragons also covet treasure as many other dragons do, and they very often make it into the material world seeking this treasure. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about the hatching process though, because it is super interesting. A female astral dragon produces one egg every 100 or so years. It then carries this egg with herself for many years more. The egg comes out clocking at about 5 feet in diameter, and the mother will carry it with her in her travels until the egg grows to about 10 feet in diameter. At this point, a hole will be produced by the egg naturally at the top. When this happens, the mother knows to leave the egg behind, simply floating in the void of the Astral Sea. Now, this hole that gets formed at the top of the egg happens magically, and when it happens, the baby knows it is time to leave it. I mention this because the egg is actually more than simply a vessel for the fetus of the dragon. The egg is kind of its own entity to a certain extent. You see, the dragon and the egg are magically connected. The dragon always knows the location of its egg, even if the dragon is on another plane. And if something were to happen to this egg, the dragon would immediately know. Now, do you wonder why this is? Well, as I explained what the Astral Sea is, you might have noticed there really aren't any places that a dragon could use as a lair. It's just a lot of emptiness in here, and that's why the dragon actually uses its very own egg as a lair. You see, the egg continues to grow, even after the dragon leaves it. These eggs can get as big as having 30 feet in diameter. Massive, and definitely useful for a young astral dragon to use as a home, and as a place to store its treasure. The eggs are exceptionally camouflaged since they are of the very same color as the Astral Sea, which means that any prospective thieves would have to be extremely close to the egg to even be able to tell it apart from the rest of this void. Eventually, however, the dragon will simply grow too big to use its egg as a lair, and will instead find other locations, like for example, Gith citadels as a lair. Now, let's talk a little bit about the power of these types of dragons, more specifically their breath weapons. You see, every type of dragon tends to have their own very unique style of breath. Red dragons have fire, white dragons have ice. Silver dragons do also have eyes, but they can also paralyze with their breath. There are breath weapons that can confuse, some that can propel you backwards dozens of feet and literally throw you far away. Astral Dragon's breath stupefies you. That is to say, it short-circuits your brain so that you cannot think. A typical recipient of this type of breath would be left drooling, floating in the air. It messes you up. Mechanically speaking, it drops your intelligence and charisma all the way down to 1. This means that while under the effects of this breath, you cannot communicate, you cannot think, you cannot cast spells or use magical items, you cannot keep concentration, and most important of all, you cannot reason or perform tactics. You can, however, recognize enemies and friends, and even have the ability to defend your friends, albeit in a very limited manner. This is actually one of the most powerful breath abilities you will find, mainly because of the location where this all takes effect. Remember when I said that movement in the Astral Sea is defined by your intelligence? That's right, a person under the effects of this breath will simply not be able to move, at least not more than simply 3 feet around, literally just floating slowly in a direction. Not very helpful in combat at all. The breath can also go as far as 200 feet in any direction, which makes it very difficult to avoid, especially considering the fact that even the most intelligent of persons will really only be able to move as fast as about a third of what an astral dragon can hover for in the Astral Sea. Just save yourself the problem and do not engage, even if you think you can simply overpower the dragon with your might. Why? Well, because one of their most feared abilities, it's actually its bite, not even its breath. Though this factor greatly depends on how exactly you entered the Astral Sea. For you see, there are 2 ways. You can physically enter the plane via a portal or some manner of teleportation spell like a plane shift spell, or you can enter the Astral Sea by using an astral projection spell. The Astral Projection spell is one of the best spells to traverse the planes, simply because, while using this type of travel, you're actually technically invincible. You see, the spell projects your soul into the astral plane. This manifestation, however, is perfectly alike to your real physical body. You can hit things, you can talk, you can bring your items over. Literally nothing changes between your projection and your real body. Except that if your soul gets killed while astrally projecting, your soul simply goes back to your body, and it does this via a silver cord that is attached to the back of your soul body. This silver cord only appears while traveling through the astral projection spell, and it is very useful. It's a little bit of a complicated spell, so I don't really want to get too deep into it. The main thing to know is that dying while under the astral projection spell, it's not a real death. You simply go back to your body and everything is fine. The Astral Dragon's bite, however, is one of the very few things in the world of Dungeons & Dragons that can actually sever this silver cord. Something that if it were to happen, then your soul would be forever cut from your body and you would die permanently. Now, this has been an overly complicated explanation, but the point is that if you're ever using the Astral Projection spell to travel through the Astral Plane, then just stay away from Astral Dragons. They will one-shot you, period. Now, the very last thing I want to talk about is centered around the fact that, time doesn't really pass in the Astral Plane, and this makes the Astral Dragons one of the best casters in the entire dragon family. You see, normally dragons can live up to 1,000 years old, sometimes even more than that, but rarely will you find a dragon that is older than maybe 2,000 years or more. The Astral Dragons, on the other hand, have no known limit to how old they can get. Tales speak of dragons in the Astral Sea who have the ability to create powerful magical items and cast tremendous spells rarely seen by adventurers, simply because some of them can easily be 10,000 years or older. Hell, likely the majority of them probably are. Myths even exist within the Githyanki of astral dragons with the ability to cast spells higher than what is currently attainable in the prime material world. Spells of 10th level or even more. Alright guys, hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you want to hear about. Leave me a comment below. Follow me on Twitter and tell me over there what you want to hear about. If there's a specific dragon that you're interested in, I can talk about dragons from Arcadia, dragons from the Nine Hells. Honestly, whatever you want. I'll see if I can do that for you. But yeah, hope you guys had fun, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye bye.